Hello, everybody. My name is Kiese Laymon. I'm a black Southern writer from Jackson, Mississippi, and I have the deep honor to be here with my friend, my mayor, Mayor Chokwe Lumumba. Chokwe, how are you doing?
Doing well, and the pleasure is mine, brother. I'm so proud of the great work you're doing. I was just thinking, you're like the Tupac of literature. You just keep cranking them out. You know, uh, you know, you can crank them out faster than anybody else, and
Oh man,
just the literary brilliance and your hard work. Really speaks. Not only to your work in its own right, but the history of Jackson. Jackson has been just a holy grail of brilliant writers over time. And so I'm just happy to see you continuing that legacy.
thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much. I want to talk today about a lot of things in this 30 minutes that we have. I want to talk about vision. I want to talk about utopia. I also want to talk about regret. But I also just want to start it off by talking about joy and congratulations for winning the second term. And I'm interested in how much joy I felt an extreme amount of joy.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to put that on you, but can you talk about what it felt? 'Cause I'm sure you feel a lot of responsibility knowing you the way I do, but can you also talk about the joy you might have felt?
Well, absolutely. The joy is really felt based on the people that I know that work along with this administration each day, and are given their all. The joy is felt from the people in the community who have been a part of long discussions about our progress. The joy is felt for people who worked on my campaign team that even when I was too exhausted to join a campaign meeting, they kept it going without me. So that's some of the personal joy, and then the joy is grounded in knowing that we can continue this work. But as I know, brother, we've been deeply rooted in uh, community progress and community efforts. So no matter what role I serve in, I'm going to always find my way to being
Yes.
part of some work. But I'm excited about the fact that having a deep love for the people and know that they appreciate and see some value in us continuing this work is gratifying, and it is humbling.
And like one of the things about us is that we are at least second generation, not just second generation Jacksonians, but second generation of Jacksonians who were expected to make Jackson better than we left it. Your father was a mentor to my father, to my mother, um, and then I'm older than you. I come up, and when I was in high school, I was hearing about Lil Chokwe, Lil Chokwe, Lil Chokwe, and it's a dream that Lil Chokwe would become my mayor. But as someone who loves and cares for you, brother, it's been hard to watch what often feels like an unfair assault on you. I spent longer than I wanted to spend over the past like 4 or 5 months watching Fox News and other news cycles critique your leadership of the water crisis, and some people critique like the infrastructure that you inherited. And so I'm interested in like how you deal with those critiques when they come from the outside, and sometimes when they come from the inside.
Yeah. Well, I try my best not to get too high or too low. And when we remain focused on what our objectives are, then that guides and gives us some perspective over even the criticism. I was taught that we should be able to come to the table in a spirit of unity, debate, unity,
Mm.
where we can talk about where we see eye to eye, debate where we may have differences, with the objective of reaching greater unity than we arrived in the room with. And so I tried my best to redirect, my thoughts and considerations in that way. And then lastly, I thought my father had a very profound perspective on that issue, where he said, if you don't love the people, sooner or later you'll betray the people.
Ooh.
Love is an active pursuit each and every day. My wife loves me in spite of the fact that I don't, make the bed every day, right?
Right.
She chooses to love me, in spite of my flaws, and so even as I think about, whether certain challenges that we have been decades in the making. I understand that people are frustrated with their condition, and I may be the symbol that best represents where they direct that frustration. And so that's part of my responsibility
Yeah,
to take that on. I understand that we have a lot of education that we have to be able to provide the community, and so that's really where I sit. And then at the same time, sometimes I do need redirecting. I
mm,
think about my father and a case that he had once, and he was telling me how he had this client that everything he did, the client was interrupting him, saying, "Look, I need you to do this. I need you to do that." And my father finally just said, "Listen, man, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this." And the client actually said something that was very profound to him. He said, "I know you're good." He said, "That's why I got you." But he
mm,
said, "I need you to be good right now." Right. And so, none of us are perfect vessels. And so I'm not above reproach. But at the same time, I do believe that if there's a danger in single narratives. And
yeah,
so we have to make certain that we are controlling the narratives. And when people are trying to uh, point to just issues that are systemic and have been in the making for a long period of time, we have to be more diligent to make certain that we give a larger and a wider range of what is actually taking place in our city, and
absolutely.
that's what our responsibility. I tell people that some people profit from dysfunction, and they want to point out dysfunction because there's something to be gained in that. And so we just have to be able to continue to lift up our message of success, our message of progress, and our message of being able to dig in deeper to correct what still needs to be corrected.
One of the things that I've always wanted to ask you, Chokwe, and I think sometimes we can't ask elected officials this because the vision is supposed to be what they can get done in their next 4 years. I don't want to know exactly what you can get done in your next 4 years. I want to know what your vision in terms of utopic, like what is a utopic vision for Jackson as it relates to infrastructure and arts? Like not necessarily what you can get done in the next 4 years, but what do you, Chokwe Lumumba, like envision for a possibility for Jackson that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, I think that the best words that capture what that vision is dignity and self determination. Uh, you know, too often we see our communities marred in cycles of humiliation, where we continue to see, failing infrastructure, high crime, poor performing schools, and all of these issues that really reflect, humiliation on our communities, and people are marred in those challenges. And so, what we want to do is create a dignity economy, an economy which reflects the inherent dignity of every single person. I say self determination because that is the guiding principle that I govern by. That is the guiding principle that I live my life by. That is the guiding principle that I believe that all of our work as a community should be focused on. Is how do we give people some say so over their quality of life? How do we build collective genius so that people are able to determine the direction that they want to see their families go in? One of the analogies that I have used very often, when people think of a mayor, they often associate them with infrastructure and potholes. And my father, who had been a part of such groundbreaking and revolutionary work, he also ran with a pretty tough crowd. And some of those comrades of his asked him, Shokwe, how are you going to change the world, or how are you going to do, such, a macro, how are you going to contribute to such a macro change in on society by fixing potholes? And
Right.
so his vision was, look, we have to connect pothole to pothole and community to community so people in Jackson, Mississippi understand why there's a community that looks just like theirs in Gary, Indiana, in Detroit, Michigan, in in Jamaica, uh, Queens, New York, and ultimately what you learn in the process of fixing that pothole is that the pothole was never your problem in the first place. Your problem is that you don't control the decision making process that leads to a pothole being fixed. Your problem is that you don't control the economic development that takes place in your community. that you don't control the curriculum that educates your children. And so your problem is a fundamental one, that
Right.
you lack the self determination in order to control the quality of life you so justly deserve. And so we have to democratize power. That's what
Yeah.
I believe our overall objective has to be. And and as that relates to, just, and I'm going to, move on from this particular subject, but as that relates to the arts, as we envision revolution, as we envision a radical change, we have to paint revolution. We have to
Yes,
write
brother.
revolution. The arts have always influenced culture, right? Influenced, the mindsets of people that give them the encouragement that we can see, ourselves to the end of our journey.
Yeah. And when you talk about the arts, I mean, you know this more than anybody I know, but so many of us who chose the arts as a pathway, and I think you chose the arts as a pathway. I think the way you govern is artful. Um, so many of us who chose arts as a pathway coming up in Jackson, I think we understand that we became the artists we became partially because there wasn't a lot of institutional support for our artistry.
Yes.
And so, but I wonder what happens if we do have more institutional support for all of our young people in Jackson who want to become artists, not just writers, not just sculptors, not just singers, not just rappers, not just dancers, but any kind. And so, my utopic vision is that there's not one child in Jackson who has an artistic like bone in their body who does not feel wholly supported. And I know that vision, like most of our visions, is tied to money. So a concrete question I have is like, where and how do we get the money, not just to fix the potholes and not just to fix the water, but where and how do we get the money to support all of our young people in their artistic endeavors before they get to middle school and high school? Is that something Jackson is capable of?
I believe it is. I don't think that it happens overnight, of course. But let me bring that question forward in a different way. You talked about money, and you talked about the arts, and the need to support our young people. The reality is we teach our children the cost of everything, but the value of nothing, right? And when we can start telling them and teaching them about the value of community, the value of building self-determined conditions for ourselves, the value of dignity in their lives, then I think ultimately we'll be able to position ourselves in a creative fashion, that when we write about revolution, when we paint about revolution, then people find Jackson, right? The
Yeah.
energy finds Jackson to bring the resources, bring the capital here. Art influences capital far more than capital influences art.
Right.
Uh, and so those things, operate hand in hand. But we have to be able to buy into that vision. From a political, a purely political, and you know, uh, kind of a normal operations, function, I can tell you that I feel more optimistic that we'll have more resources today or coming than before, with different discussions around infrastructure and the like. But your question is really bigger than that, right?
Right.
And my view ultimately is, if our, plan for success is dependent on someone else
Mm.
acting on our behalf, then we don't have a plan. What we have is a wish list. And so, we have to be able to determine how we begin to rescue ourselves. How do we begin to build economic opportunities within communities? How do we begin to fill voids with cooperative businesses where people can not only determine how they'll fill those voids, how their labor, but what the fruits of their labor will be? And so that's how we have to, take, the discussion from fixing potholes and elevate it, and make it a bridge
Right.
to other conversations. Take the art that we're painting on the streets, where we have unifying messages, as a means to have larger discussions about how we organize in a stronger and more robust fashion.
Oh, I love that. I love that answer, brother. A lot of times I feel like we Mississippians, especially Jacksonians, are those people who was like, man, it wasn't like this in my day. And as I've gotten older, I keep being, every time I come through Jackson, I'm always like, man, it was so different. And the difference often is just like it was so much better back then. And I think that's sort of like sentimental, um, tug on memory is one, dishonest, but I also think there's some value in it. And I wonder, when you think about the Jackson you grew up in, do you see, do you remember the abundance of something that you don't see as much of now? And I wonder not how we can get back to that Jackson, but how do we get better than that Jackson?
Yeah.
Like, do you? Yeah, can we go there?
Well, first of all, I think your observation that perspective is always a bit skewed, right?
Yeah.
When someone passes away, right, we seem to reflect on all the good,
Right.
that took place, and it's not necessarily in that moment to reflect on the bad, right? But I do think that it's a little bit of both. There are some things that we certainly want to reach back and grab onto and build on. And there's some things that we're happy that we've walked away from.
Mm,
But when I look at Jackson, Jackson really represents community to me, and in a larger sense. My family focused on the value of family, the value of community, and more important than that, the value of seeing the community as a family.
yes.
That means something to me more than just in an organizing political sense, but in actual reality in terms of my upbringing. So, few people know that we don't have any blood relatives in Jackson, Mississippi, outside of our immediate family.
Right.
My father was a part of a huge family. He was one of eight. His mother was one of 15. Her mother was one of 15. Our claim to fame is that my grandmother's first cousin was Joe Lewis, and they moved to Alabama
Wow.
from Alabama to Detroit together. My mother has a large family in D.C., but none of that family was actually here in Jackson, and so my parents left me people that I actually spent more time with here in the city of Jackson than I did my blood relatives. And so I missed that sense of community that I benefited from as a child, where I would ride my bike through the neighborhood and
Right.
people knew me and people would feed me and bring
Yeah.
me in. When we look at issues of crime, when we look at issues of just the things that we don't want to see in our community, I think that part of that is associated with our unwillingness or our failure to connect with one another, our failure to engage with each other in a real way. It's a lot easier robbing Miss Davis when I don't know Miss Davis in the first place,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think that we have to find means of bringing things back. In terms of the arts, there are things that we certainly miss and remember, right? We
Hmm.
miss the festivals, right? We miss
Yes.
Junior Jam. We miss
Yes.
a more robust Ferris Street Festival that celebrated our culture, celebrated one another. And I think that we have to celebrate one another more. Jackson is a city which is pregnant with possibilities. We just have to nurture it. And so that's where I think that we have to get to. But in terms of a city that I remember when the grassroots convention took place, that we were looking at how we had leadership that looked like us for the first time in the city of Jackson. And so we're happy that we're past that point. But how we build on that now is not only getting leadership that looks like us, but making certain that we maintain leadership that thinks like us collectively.
I love that, brother. And I love how that ultimately connects to the self determination and the dignity that you spoke of earlier. And I guess I wonder, I've talked about this with you a bit, but I wonder specifically the roles that anti patriarchal stances and an embrace of not just like the feminine, not just black women, but the feminine in our city. I wonder how necessary it might be for us to rethink and recast dignity as not some sort of like masculinist endeavor, but something that has been in our city, in our state, fortified by so many black women. So I guess I've asked this question to you before, but I wonder if there's a way to to foreground often the people who are making Jackson work, who are like the black women who are making Mississippi work, who are black women. Yet when I look across our state, I not just see men, but I see men who are often
Yeah.
traditional politics, traditional ways of communicating. I wonder how important it is for you to see black women and black femness centered in our vision of Jackson's tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, it's a measure, just as we're talking about, a larger scale view of how we reimagine our society as a whole. We understand that that not only has to be the fight that we're engaged in each and every day in the workplace and our cultural pursuits, but more importantly in our education of our children, right?
Yes.
And I think that's where we have to start. I can cheat a little bit with you, Kiera, say that I can speak a little. Uh, I'm fluent in author, right?
Yeah.
Because my wife is a literature professor and
Brilliant.
just has a love of words like yourself, and so she's connected me with pieces such as We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Adichie that was educational to me, right? Just as we talk about uh, Mississippi having to learn of its not only learn and accept and grow from its racist past, right, or racist present too, right? uh, but as men we have to accept our sexism, right? We have to acknowledge and be willing to learn. Not only in acknowledging, sometimes we acknowledge our failures and believe that we lead the charge of what is no longer sexist, right? We have to allow women to guide us. We have to allow women to educate us and inform us of things that we haven't considered as being benefactors of a patriarchal society. And so those are the things that I want to see. Obviously, from a personal standpoint, when I look at my little girls, I think more about, how I grow towards that mission each and every day. I think and I recognize some of the unintentional limitations that people put on women. One thing that I see, and out of love and admiration for my father, the fact that I carry his name and people's recognition of the Lumumba name now. Sometimes people say, well, you got to get you a son, to carry that name,
Wow.
or a son who can, be mayor next.
Wow.
Well, first and foremost, I want my daughters to do, whatever their hearts and the Lord leads them to. But don't place limits on their lives, right?
Absolutely.
I don't need a son to do that. If it's within us, then my daughters are just as capable as any of our daughters.
Right.
And so we need to lift that up, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to be intentional about each and every day.
Absolutely, absolutely, bro. One thing I wanted to use this opportunity to talk to you about was fear. One, because I just would love to hear you talk through the different manifestations of fear over the last 4 years. But I'm also interested in philosophically whether or not you find any utility in fear. I was raised by a grandmother who, on one hand was like, you gotta confront everything you're afraid of, but she also was like, there's some things you should be afraid of and that you should not confront because you've seen people confront those things poorly. Can you talk to me, Chokwe, about what you are most afraid of going forward and what you were most afraid of when you were elected 4 years ago?
Well, what I would say is this: first and foremost, we talk about, we come from very spiritual backgrounds,
Yeah.
right? And we talk about, the Lord hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and sound mind, right? But I think having concern or trepidation that doesn't cripple you or leave you in a place that you don't move forward and don't walk in faith.
Yeah.
That is the true sin, right?
Yeah.
It's not so much being concerned or nervous about something. And what I will say is, just the idea of not continuing to engage,
Mm.
of not being a part of work, that fear was motivating to me to run in the first place when my
Hmm.
father died. That has been, a fear or a concern of what is my contribution, feeling the thirst, feeling, the hunger to just be a part of community work has always been, there for me, even before I was elected mayor.
Yes.
I remember as a child, right? Just having the unique experience of living in the household with my hero, my father,
Yeah.
carrying the same name. I remember praying as a young boy when I would go to bed and just repeating, Lord, use me for a
Wow.
special work. And that was because I had a fear of, of being inadequate,
Yeah.
and not being able to walk in those footsteps. Now, ultimately, I've come to the place of understanding that I need to be Chokwe Antar, right? I need to be myself and identify what my contribution needs to be. But I continue to use that fear in the sense of not uh, ever being satisfied, not ever being comfortable. And I think that we have to do that. I've sometimes been critiqued in moments of being overly passionate. I fear the moment when I'm not passionate,
Me
right?
too. Yeah.
I fear the moment when it doesn't mean enough to me that it rises up in me and is reflected in what we say and do.
Yes. Yes. Man, you channeling right now, brother. You are channeling. I feel that answer deeply.
Yeah,
We're getting close to the end, so I wanna maybe ask a few just like immediate like snap questions. Some of them are gonna be funny, some of them are not.
I got you. I'm with
All
it.
right, here we go. This might be the part they cut.
I think so, bruh.
All right, we gonna win the Jackson State gonna win the swag next year.
Oh man, I gotta say yeah.
You gotta say yeah.
No, no, look. Uh, I'm gonna give some inside football instead of inside baseball. I rap with our brother Dion, right? And he told me, I was gonna talk some mess. You know, uh, this last season, I guess this exhibition season, whatever you
Right,
want to call it.
right.
And I asked him because Mayor Broom of Baton Rouge got me real good. I had to wear a jersey last year,
Oh
man, all that stuff.
no,
I was real embarrassed, so I was ready
no.
to go at her. And he told me, he said, "Hold up." He said, I got to wait till my team is fully in there and I'm gonna be ready to ride. So I'm gonna go ahead and say we're gonna do this. We're gonna shock everybody, right?
Oh my
And I'm
god.
gonna
Okay.
talk next to every mayor.
Everybody.
I'm coming for y'all. I just want them.
Everybody.
Yeah,
Everybody.
certainly Baton Rouge, certainly that Southern crew. They on the list. So
Certainly. All right. All right.
yeah,
Second question, which is I mean, it's funny to me, but it's probably not gonna be funny to other people. How important is gubernatorial support for Jackson? Like, can the governor not just slow down, but stop
mhm.
things that we want to see done?
Absolutely has the power, and I think that we find ourselves in the conditions that we're in today because you know by some virtue, a lot of that has been stopped over time. A lot
Right.
of the support we need. When we look at a declining infrastructure, when we look at our drinking water, uh, you know, woes, when we look at our all of the challenges the city of Jackson has, there has not been a level of support from the state which is commensurate with the level of support that Jackson provides the state.
Yes. Yes.
Most capital cities across the nation receive payment in lieu of taxes because we have properties that are not taxable that we don't enjoy the benefit of the tax revenue because they are state owned properties. Uh, you know, we, uh, we provide the overwhelming lion's share of revenue, of tax revenue to the state of Mississippi. And so we simply want to see the type of support which is commensurate of what we provide. And lastly, understanding that Jackson's success uh, is the state of Mississippi's success. When we look at the demographic that is leaving the state of Mississippi at the most significant rate, it is our millennials.
Yeah.
And we have done our homework and we have created a mayor and the millennials roundtable discussion. What we have learned is that millennials like urban environments. They like walkable cities.
Mm.
They like public art, right? All of those things which Jackson is best positioned to provide to them. And so, let's work to grow Jackson, and by extension, I think that the state of Mississippi benefits as well.
All right. Two slightly maybe easier ones. People always ask me when I come to Jackson, where should I eat? You might get in trouble with this one.
Yeah.
Where? Give me one. One. We got people coming into Jackson this weekend. They can go eat one place. Where you telling them to go eat?
Well, this is my guy. He does a great job, and I never steer people wrong. I love Johnny T's. I like the
Oh
special
yes,
at
yeah,
Johnny T's. The tilapia with over the bed of rice with the spinach and
yes.
the shrimp. I'm tasting it right now. I'm gonna go get that today. Uh, so that's always a good go to. But we're the deep fried South, right? And that is a part of the beauty of what we offer in our culture and gives a sense of place to Jackson. My wife's her work and her dissertation was on foodways and mothering in the global south, and just looking at not only her work. I was recently watching the documentary High on the Hog on Netflix that talks about our influence on the world through the lens of food. But food means is love in our communities. Food is love because when you have little to offer, just offering a good meal to the people who cross the threshold of your house.
Yeah.
Uh, is something that we provide, and so we do that well here in Jackson and throughout the state. Honestly,
All right. All right. Last question, man. And again, that question was about culinary art. This is a question that's a little bit more about musical art, but I think you're gonna get yourself in trouble with this one too. So let me see. We know the Sonic Boom is the greatest band on earth.
absolutely, absolutely.
Today, if you had to say second, who comes in second to Jackson State Soul Sonic Boom? Who's the second best band on earth?
Well, I'm a cheat, Kiese.
Okay.
I'm gonna choose my alma mater. I'm gonna choose the Crimson Piper Band at Tuskegee University.
Let them know.
I just left the state, so ain't nobody gonna blame me for choosing my alma mater. So,
Right, that's right.
you know,
That's good. That's a great
yeah,
one, bro. Yo, you are I wanted to talk about utopias, bro, but you are my utopia. Like as a young person, I never even knew I could imagine you being the mayor of our city. As an older person, I think every day I know possibility and the possibility for self determination, dignity is there, partially because you are there doing this work. I really appreciate the ways you model active regret. I appreciate the ways you also model visionary transformation. You are doing this work. We need to help you more. And I just want to say thank you so much, brother, for everything you've done.
well, Asante, brother, but my gratitude is extended back to you. I'm appreciative in the way that you don't conform. I'm appreciative in the way that uh, you don't hold back in your gift, and that means and encourages us and pushes us forward. And our work is just fashioned in a different way, but equally significant and equally important to the whole. I want to encourage young people, whether they're an author, whether they're looking at politics or whether they're just looking at making certain that people recognize the voice of the streets.
Yes.
Uh, that we need all of that in order to see the change that we so desperately deserve. And so, I enjoyed this conversation. Next time you're back home, let me know. Let's break
Absolutely.
some bread, maybe over a special at Johnny T's.
Let's do it. Let's
All
do it.
right.
And let's stay faithful, brother. That's what they gave us. Let's do that too.
Yay, Bo. Yay, Bo. Absolutely, brother.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right. Appreciate you.